Okay. All right, there we
There
go.
we
Had a technical difficulty there, but I think we got through it. So, if you guys don't know who I am by now, or tired of seeing my face, I'm Joe DeHoyos, the host of Beyond the Woodline. And of course, I've got the talented and lovely and always graceful Miss Shannon Rogers. How you doing, Shannon?
I'm doing great. I'm back at it. I'm having fun. Took a break and I'm back at it. Got a lot of good stuff coming up.
Yeah.
So,
Anything you can talk about? Or are you still holding out?
yeah, I'm somewhat holding out, but I can bring it up. As you know, I took a break almost 2 months because I was getting a little worn out, but I just booked my next event. So, and it's in an epic location, and I've got some really well-known people that are supposed to be coming on this event, and I cannot wait to share it. I'm waiting on my graphic artist to get it all together, and once he does, I'm going to drop it, and I'm pretty sure it's going to sell out really fast because it's
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, I've been going out to the woods, man, I don't know how many times this month alone. And yeah, we had some pretty good stuff happen. We got some interesting prints. I actually sent those prints to Jody. I'm not even sure what they were, but they were interesting to say the least. And it was in an area where Walter had his encounter, and we found that tree break. But while I mentioned Jody, Jody, how you doing?
Pretty good.
Yeah,
doing good.
So, what did you think about those prints? They were kind of strange, and they kind of look hoofish at the same time. But
Yeah,
they kind of look like,
I was getting ready to say I was looking at those. I didn't get a respond back to you because, like I said, this week has been so rough. Yeah, they're odd looking.
right.
My first impression was probably a smaller Bigfoot. That was my first impression. But when I was looking at them at a different angle, it was quite different. So did you make a cast of it by any chance?
Yeah. I got 2 prints, and my friend Walter has 2 other prints.
Okay. Yeah. If send me pictures of the cast if you don't mind.
Okay.
I definitely like to take a look at those.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, they were like 4.5, maybe 5 feet across. I didn't have a measuring tape.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been a bear. Bear prints are up at top of each other, and it goes into like a snake motion.
Okay.
Is the best way to describe that. So you can tell the difference with a bear print. Because I noticed they weren't any like claw marks that I could see in the pictures.
Right.
So it would have been definitely would not have been a bear.
Yeah. Yeah. We have it. And what I kind of felt like it was maybe walking on its knuckles. Yeah, I'm not sure who that is commenting, but one of our friends, I'm sure.
Yeah.
When you guys log on, you got to get StreamYard permission to use your name. Otherwise, it just says Facebook.
Yeah, not a problem.
But Joe, so what have you been up to, man? I see you got your cap on. And I asked you about that off the air, and why don't you talk about your group?
The North American Dogman Project. We've been around for a few years. We are the largest Dogman research organization on the planet. I mean, we have 700 members worldwide. We have chapters in most of the United States and around the country, around the world rather. Lately we haven't been posting a whole lot of stuff. Some of our regional areas have been posting stuff, but the main Facebook page we have, because we've been doing so much stuff with the website and putting everything on the website. And the problem with social media, you're always going to have someone that's going to be a troll. So we don't post a whole lot on there. So we've been real busy. There's some really good projects that's coming up that is going to be extremely beneficial to the field.
awesome.
We can't go into detail about it, but it's great. Some of the stuff that's going to be happening here. I do have a show coming out that I did last October with Mysteries Decoded on Dogman. So that should be out probably late September, early October. I think they're wanting to put it out because the whole show deals with Dogman or Werewolf. So they're wanting to put that out, I think, right around Halloween, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Awesome.
So, what got you interested in Dogman? How did that get on your radar?
Well, I did cryptid research for 30 years. Prior to that, I did a lot of UFO investigation. So the UFO stuff, I fell into the cryptid because we were getting a lot of cryptid reports along with the UFO stuff, and that going into the cryptid stuff was mostly Bigfoot. We're getting some Dogman sightings, not a whole lot. And you got to understand, this is like the 80s and 90s and 2000s. Okay, so we weren't getting a whole lot of Dogman stuff until like the early 2000s when things would really start picking up. But you go back and look at my field reports from the 80s and early 90s, and in these field reports you see that some of these reports had snouts, had high pointed ears, backward style legs like a dog. So what people thought was a Bigfoot was actually a Dogman. So been dealing with a lot of that and getting into the Dogman stuff. I just fell into it. I loved it. But we also would get other cryptid reports. The Goat Man, Chupacabra stuff, other small cryptids like Pudwedgies, things like that. So we still check them out, but like I said, Dogman has been the main thing right now because it's a very hot subject.
Right. Yeah, it's actually a pretty big subject here in Texas, which is where I'm at. Yeah, it's a pretty big subject here in Texas, and there's actually a lot of sightings in places people wouldn't expect them to be. I guess do you find that kind of common where people might not expect to see any kind of cryptid, especially something like a Dogman?
Well, the thing of it is, here in the late 2000s, it's not uncommon to get reports in different parts of the country. Now, you go back to, 1995, going up to maybe 2003, 2004, it was uncommon to get reports of Dogman and even some other cryptids in certain parts of the country, especially the Pacific Northwest and Texas, because all what was coming through those areas were Bigfoot sightings. And then now you start getting a lot of different cryptid sightings, mostly Dogman along with the Bigfoot, but you're getting other cryptids like some type of reptilian type creature, or another type of like a Bigfoot, or even something that resembles a Pudwedgie.
Okay.
And what a Pudwedgie, if people are wondering what that is, it is a small little creature of about 10 inches that are little demons.
Right.
And these things are factual bases. There's two main places in the country. One is the I'm trying to think, Bridgewater Triangle area, in New Jersey, and the other one is Indiana. There's a park called Mountain Park, I think it is. I have to look it up to be on. I can't remember off the top of my head, but this is the only place that has where you can find a lot of Pudwedgie sightings. Even at this past summer, Mound State Park, that's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, that had Pudwedgie sightings just this year, and most of every employee at that park have seen them. These things they're burning people's tents up. They're stealing stuff out of people's tents. I mean, it's some crazy stuff.
Right. Yeah. Walter actually had a question. He asked, where did the name Dogman originate from? Do you remember how far back that goes? It seems like it's always been around, but
it has. I mean, excuse me. They've always been some type of dog-headed creature,
Right.
especially in the Middle East. Okay,
Right.
in Mesopotamia, which is Iraq today, they dealt with a group of dog-headed people. They traded with them. They were able to communicate with them. The Vikings have had contacts with them. It's in Egyptian folklore with Anubis. Like you said, the Vikings have talked about them. The Europeans have talked about them. These things have always been here. Even you look at Saint Christopher. Okay,
Right.
and I have actual photographs from the Vatican. The Vatican has original pictures or paintings of Saint Christopher with a dog head.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it is.
When I lived in, go ahead, Shannon. Go ahead, Shannon.
I'm so sorry. I didn't realize my mic was up earlier and I was talking. Before I forget, okay, I have a question just for educational reasons because I'm curious. Okay, so the demon cannot manifest here on Earth, but it can use a host. Do you think Pudwedgies are actually hosts that are used like tools for the demonic energy to attach to them to be able to do what they need to do?
Well, I can agree to that, but they're also in solid form.
Gotcha,
the best way to describe them, they look like little demons. They're wearing, their clothing is like torn clothing or leaves or something to that effect. This is all the descriptions that we've gotten from people, especially, when we went to Mount State Park. There is about 10 different Native American monuments in that park that the local Native American tribe put there to pull out that evil energy of the Pudwedgies, and it's not working. These things they're little demons. That's another name they call them because like I said, they attack people. They burnt down tents. They stole their food. They stole stuff out of their tents. They've tore their tents up. They tore their clothing up. And, people have actually seen these things. Right. Like I said, even this summer, we just got a report out there from one of the employees of the park that was coming into the park and they was chasing her vehicle and she was scared to death.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying, and I can really respect that because I think that they are taking solid form from that evil energy because they can't manifest into anything else. Because the thing about the Pudwedgies, they're not all different looking; they're all the same looking. So that kind of gives you, that they're manifesting from something, and mimicking something.
Right. What about like footprints or hair or anything like that? Have you ever seen it either on pictures or?
No, I've never seen it. All I've seen is drawings of what people have, what they've seen. They look like little trolls.
Okay. Going back to the Dogman, we were talking about how like they've been reported, for forever, really. Mm-hmm. I used to live outside of San Antonio, Texas. It was a place called Universal City. Right next to Universal City was another little city called Converse. It's like 20 miles outside of San Antonio, and that area had its own little creature, which was called the Converse Werewolf. And okay, you've heard of that one?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I actually heard about it when I was in. Was it San Antonio?
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was San Antonio at the time.
Yeah.
I heard about it.
Yeah, it was called the Converse Werewolf, and I think the story goes that a farmer had sent his son out to go hunting, and he came back, said he was scared, he saw a monster or something, and the father goes, "There's no monsters out there." He goes back out there and finished the hunt, and he never came home. And when they went back looking for him, he got some friends to go look for his son, and they found this werewolf eating at him, and they shot at him, but it was running too fast for them to get a beat.
That story's been around for a while, but there's bases to it, and that's the thing, because there's actually people who came forward that will verify that they know the family,
right? Yeah,
where that happened at.
Yeah.
So and it's not uncommon for especially in Texas, there's a lot more Dogman sightings going on in Texas today than they are Bigfoot. Bigfoot was a really big popular thing in Texas, but now, like I said, the Dogman stuff. I mean, we're getting reports from Border Patrol agents that are seeing them.
Right, and even like in the hill country, which is a lot of hills. There's not a lot of wooded area, but there's definitely a lot of hills and rocky terrain, and people are seeing these things, and it's a lot of open ground, really, So
yeah, a lot of people don't realize that along the Texas-Mexican border, there's a whole lot of land, and things that anything can move back and forth, and not be detected.
Yeah, and that's one thing I say about the hill country area, and from like San Antonio to Austin, there's a lot of creeks and ravines and gullies, and they're not at all like really too deep. They're like 8-9 feet deep, but anything can move around, and you'll never see them even in the daytime.
There's a part of Texas, I can't remember the name of the area, but it's a lot of hills, and it actually borders Mexico. And because it's so hilly, they don't put fences up there, but they put listening devices and stuff like that for illegal border crossings. But and like I said, that area, I can't remember the name of it, but that is where they're having a lot of sightings taking place in that particular area where the hills are, that where one side's the U.S. and the other side's Mexico. So these things, they're able to move over those mountains. And it's not just one. I mean, they're seeing packs of these things moving down in Texas.
Yeah, and that's probably the scary part, Is
South Georgia and stuff. There's a lot. We've got reports coming out of every state. I mean, states that I would never imagine a Dogman sighting coming out of. We're getting them. Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. Well, Tennessee, we knew on the northern part, but like the southern part, Louisiana. Oh my God, the stuff that's coming out of Louisiana, it's just unbelievable. I mean, we were contacted by Louisiana Baton Rouge police officer that was going down the road one night, and the road had no lights on. It was just a regular dirt road, and they patrol the dirt road because sometimes people use that road as like a shortcut, and they check it so just to make sure no one broke down. And he comes up on something large eating something in the road, so he gets pretty close to it. His headlights hitting it. He thought it was a bear at first, and he's like, well, we don't have bear down here. Okay. I mean, we've got, cougars, we know that, but we don't have bears, and then he ended up seeing the tail move on this thing. And so he threw on the lights and the siren, and then the head came up, and, you saw the ears, and he said the ears were kind of like moving back, trying to listen. And he said this thing stood up and was turning around and looking at him at the same time. He said that this thing was something out of a horror movie. He said it was something out of the movie The Howling. He said this was a werewolf. He said this was your classic werewolf. And it came towards him and jumped on his cars, tried to bust in the window. So now, so his dash cam's on. So he's getting this on video. It's trying to bust into the windshield. It's scratching up the vehicle. He goes in reverse, does it like a 360, throws it off the car, and heads out. He is so scared. He gets back to his station, contacts his desk sergeant, and explained to his desk sergeant what's going on. Said, you got to look at my car. They looked at the cars completely ripped apart, windshields busted. He goes, I got this thing on our cam. They go in, they look at the video, and his sergeant drops his jaw, calls in another supervisor. The supervisor looks at it. They tell him, okay, listen, go home, and come back on your shift tomorrow. If you need to take another day, take another day. So he went home, came back the next day. He noticed his car was completely repaired. Okay, completely repaired. Talks to his shift supervisor, desk sergeant there, and was telling them, have anybody else seen the video? And they're like, what video? My dash cam video. Well, what dash cam video are you talking about? So they completely shoved him off. They knew something, and they erased his dash cam video. And they basically told him, if you talk about this, we're going to have a, medical psychological evaluation on you done, and you could lose your job and not be able to carry a firearm anymore. So it's nuts.
Yeah, you hear stuff like that happening to these officers. I actually had an officer who had an encounter with a bigfoot here in what's the name of the river? I can't remember the name of the river now. It's just a little bit north of Houston, also, and he didn't want to report it because he's a canine officer. He goes, man, because they'll take my dog away from me. So
yeah,
So and you know how these guys are with their dogs. They love their dogs, and there's a bond there. He's like, I'm not giving up my dog, But he came to me and told me about it, and he just didn't want to lose his dog. So he's like, I'm not telling anybody about it.
I see a lot of law enforcement are like that. They wait until they're retired or quit to go to another job, then they're going to come forward. We have about a half dozen police officers that came and talked to us. We even had the Louisiana branch of the DEA had and contacted us. Some of their agents.
Wow.
But in general, who's going to believe you? You know what I mean? They could discredit your career depending on who you're reporting to, and and it's just like sometimes it's easier to not say anything and maybe think that maybe you didn't see what you thought. It's second guess. So. Yeah,
that goes the same with airline pilots who spot UFOs. They're not going to come out publicly and report that. They know exactly what's going to happen. And we've talked about that, about you being into the UFO field. When I was living in San Antonio, I knew someone who worked at Lackland Air Force Base. And that person told me that they were out watching stuff fly above the base, And when the pilots came in and they were going to tell them what they saw, they told them you're not putting it in the report, Yeah.
When I was in the National Guard, we were.
Was I?
Huh?
Oh, go ahead. I said, so was I. Go ahead.
Okay. This is when I was National Guard, and we were on a training exercise, and we were at a base up in Michigan, and I was an ammunition specialist at the time, so we were bringing live ammunition out to the M1 tanks at the range, and the range master told everybody, to dismount their vehicles and come back to where the range was. And when everybody got there, they said, okay, you need to go into the building and stay away from the windows. Okay, so we're like, okay, what's going on here? So we were in there for close to an hour, maybe. Then we come out, and then one of the guys said, what, Sergeant, what was going on? And he said, well, with you firing, you're causing like a discommunication issues with the shuttle, the space shuttle. Now you have to understand, the range was down in a ravine. Okay, so they were too far in the ground to cause any type of disruption in communication with the shuttle. And plus, the shuttle was never up at the time. Okay, And one of the guys there, I remember saying, look, he goes, I work for AT&T. Okay. I work for the communications. This would never stop communications with the shuttle, and I remember them giving him a whole lot of hell because of what he said. So we didn't think any too much of it. And that was on a Friday. So Saturday morning, we had the weekend off. We went into town and I grabbed a newspaper to read. And front page was about UFO sightings over Grayling, Michigan on that Friday.
Right.
So it's like, obviously something happened. There were UFOs over there. Maybe they felt that, firing the tanks would look as anger or aggression. So they moved everybody out. So that was kind of a weird experience, dealing with something like that. I mean, that's how they work, that's exactly how they work.
This is from William Lester. I don't know if you can read on the screen. He's actually Dr. William Lester. And he's I can't remember what he is. An anthropologist, I believe. That's what he is. Yeah, he lost his professorship for talking about Bigfoot and mystery hominids to anthropologists.
Mhm.
That's it.
Well, here's the thing, and he probably, I'm hoping he would agree with me when I say this. Bigfoot is definitely a primate. Okay, I truly believe it because you have the four main primates. You have chimpanzee, gorilla, orangutan, and human. Human's a primate. We're all part of that family tree. I think it's just we evolved a little bit. Bless you. We evolved a little bit faster than the rest of them, maybe. But there's a connection there, and I think Bigfoot is somewhere between human and these primates. And he's somewhere within that branch. He I don't think he's an alien. I don't think he's, an experiment or a government experiment. I truly believe he is definitely a primate, and he's been here since the beginning of time. Could he be like a Cro-Magnon? Which was the more, I believe Cro-Magnon was more of the ape than the Neanderthal. And, could he be a, relative of them? We don't know. And the problem is if one is ever found dead and it actually comes public, I totally believe that science would categorize it as something other than what it is, because I don't think science wants to be wrong or have to rewrite,
Right.
To say, look, there's a new human species. And the problem with that is, humans cannot coexist with other animals, let alone another species of possible human,
Right. So, where do you think all the reports of these creatures portal jumping or cloaking or just vanishing, what do you think that is about?
You talking about Dogman or Bigfoot?
But really both. I hear them from both. I hear a lot of it from Bigfoot.
Yeah,
Really,
I hear a lot from both too. Believe it or not, the majority of our sightings that we get coming in are not so much flesh and blood, but somewhere in the supernatural realm, where they're coming in and out of portals. They're appearing and disappearing. Blue flash before or after, the sighting. Talking telepathically,
right.
To people, communicating. So we do get a lot of that.
Right.
So the possibility that this thing comes from a different realm, I can honestly accept that. I really can. But we also have to look at another theory, which is like the hollow earth theory.
Right.
Okay. Is there another world within our world, and these creatures like Mothman, Dogman, Bigfoot, reptilians, chupacabra, are these creatures from that other world that comes up to feed or to hunt or just curious?
Right.
Is there a possibility of that?
Yeah. And is there a possibility that something else is pulling the strings, not necessarily these creatures doing that,
Right.
Uh,
When I was doing UFO research and going into Bigfoot, we were getting a lot of Bigfoot UFO connection. Okay. Me personally, and I don't want to offend anybody because this is my personal opinion. I don't think there's a connection, okay, between UFOs and Bigfoot. Okay. Yes, people have seen them come out of ships. People have seen them, a UFO, a bright light, and then the Bigfoot appears. I agree. I can accept that. But we have to look at the possibility. Humans get abducted by extraterrestrials. Okay. Bigfoot could be abducted also. They're probably just curious about him as they are us.
Right.
Because other animals, we believe, get abducted. Some of them are mutilated, some are not.
Right.
Okay. So what they're seeing, the possibility of what they're seeing of a Bigfoot appearing and disappearing, when a spacecraft is around or a blue light, they could be dropping him off after,
right.
They did experiments on him. It's a possibility.
Right.
But but you can't sit, I don't think he's a convict from another planet, or he's a pet they let out to go use the bathroom or anything to that. I just don't see him being an extraterrestrial because there's too much evidence, I believe, showing that he's always been here. Even though he's not in the fossil record, doesn't mean, okay, he doesn't exist.
I like the fact that we can, like, I know enough to know that I don't know a damn thing, but that we can all take different views and opinions and discuss them, and because it takes everybody else's views. That's what we do as research,
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we do research. So everybody will have different opinions on what their opinion is or what they've done in research, but I'm just glad we're all researching and trying to find out and figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has a right to their opinion,
Mm-hmm.
and that is how we solve the mystery, is by listening to everybody's opinion.
Exactly.
The problem with this field is that people don't like other people's opinion.
Right.
And especially in the Bigfoot field, the Dogman field's getting the same way, where if you disagree with something, you get torn into.
Right.
And it's like, everybody has a right to their point of view,
Mm-hmm.
Regardless how ridiculous it is. And everybody has the right to, I believe, question, something, someone, citing or, whatever. Just if they haven't, if they have an issue or they think that something's not right, question it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean the person's being dishonest, but just question it if you have an issue with it, and don't be offended. I mean, we get it. Oh my God, when the story came out about this guy being a survivor of Land Between the Lakes, I questioned it. I disagreed with it, and I'm a bad guy in the field now because I won't buy this guy's story.
Right.
I don't care.
Okay, you get a question. It's absolutely okay.
Yeah, that's my right. That's my opinion. I've done research on Land Between the Lakes for 25 years. Okay, so I have the right to question it, and I have the right to say I think this, individual is full of it. But don't attack me because you're buying into the story. And that is what the problem is, with this field, is that everybody has their own opinion, and people fight over their own opinion. And that's what basically, I'll be honest with you, That is why I left the Bigfoot field, was simply because of that. You know, the Bigfoot field became a clique. It became a buddies only system. You know, if you didn't have the
Paranormal's
right,
worse.
yeah, if you didn't have the right last name, you weren't speaking at a conference.
Right.
Okay. And that's how it was, you know. Yeah, I like that statement. The best things are in the basement, you know, of a museum, and that's true, because I'm telling you, and I've said this. I'll bet you somewhere inside the Smithsonian Institute there is a remains of a Bigfoot. I can guarantee that, because see, the Smithsonian only puts out specimens if they have more than one. So if they only have one specimen, normally they will not put it out.
Okay.
Okay. And they're still cataloging stuff from paper into their computer system. They have so much stuff, it's going to take years for them to do it. There's probably remains of a Bigfoot or even possibly a Dogman or some other cryptid, okay, in some crate in the Smithsonian Institute, sitting under some steps, under some other crates, okay? And I truly, truly believe that. Because when Monster Quest did this show about the short-faced bear, okay, which is a prehistoric bear where people think it's still living, where this guy back in the 30s shot one and skinned it and kept the skull, and the skull was much different from a typical grizzly bear and polar bear. And he ended up giving the skull to the Smithsonian Institute. So when Monster Quest went there and said, you know, can we look at the skull and so forth, it took a couple weeks for them to actually locate the skull. And then when they found it, they wouldn't let anybody look at it on camera. So they had to hire, you know, a biologist, a wildlife biologist, to go into the Smithsonian to actually look at it and compare it to other bear skulls.
Right.
So, you know, did they actually end up finding the skull and give them the right skull, or did they just pick the skull up, you know, and said, okay, this is it? And that's the problem when you deal with, you know, places like the Smithsonian Institute. You know, they just, you know, they don't want to believe in monsters or the existence of Bigfoot. And so, you know, if they got something, they're not going to say they have it, just because they don't want it out there. They don't want to be known as the museum that has a monster.
Yeah, and I believe that too.
You need to make a museum for them.
Yeah,
exactly.
Shannon, got any questions for him, Shannon?
Well, I'm just listening. Like I said, as you know, I'm, you know, the paranormal and metaphysical side. Joe does the cryptid UFO, Bigfoot stuff. And so usually when things are a little out of my realm, I just try to listen. And so I'm usually have a lot to say, but sometimes I don't. That means I'm listening. So
right.
How long have you been involved? And then you were talking earlier, you're in the paranormal. And so I see that you've ventured out and done a lot of things and done your own research and everything. How long have you, I mean, when did you start? How old were you and what got you interested?
Well, you know, I started everything when, oh my God, probably in my late 20s. But I was always interested because I lived in a house that was haunted. I mean, literally haunted. We would see this old woman in our basement. You know, my sisters always hated to go down into the basement because they would see her, and we had stairs in our house that led to a wall. I mean, it was really, I mean, this house was weird. You know, you would open up a door and they literally were stairs going up to a wall. You know, it was like it was just weird.
Right.
And there was just so much odd stuff going on in that house. You know, eventually you got used to it. You know, I mean, your clothing would be ripped apart. Things would be moved. you would see, balls of light just move from room to room. You know, um, you would hear laughter. I mean, just a lot of crazy stuff.
I can relate to living in a haunted place. Absolutely, absolutely. Like I just filmed for the Travel Channel about a house I lived in for 2 years. Like it was bad. So I can relate to that. It's just weird. And like some people believe you because they were there and experienced it too. And other people are like, there's nothing going on here. And I'm like, yeah, it was bad. So I understand what you're saying. Like there's just things you can't explain. And that's what drove me into the field more. So
yeah,
I understand.
Right. And I really got in, to the ghost stuff. And then plus, I mean, I saw the movie The Legend of Boggy Creek, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. I would go out to the woods, with my BB gun as a kid looking for, Bigfoot. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, it scared the hell out of me, but I enjoy doing it. And, going through high school and and things like that, I read up on the stuff. Never got into a whole lot because they were, they weren't Bigfoot groups, they weren't paranormal groups. They were UFO groups, but not so much of the paranormal stuff because back in the 80s, a lot of the paranormal stuff, it wasn't taboo or anything. It's just it wasn't as open as it is today.
Right.
Totally get that. Yeah.
The Warrens you knew about the Warrens because their paranormal stuff you would read in the early or late 70s, early 80s of the paranormal stuff they were doing. But no one else was doing it. No one else was ghost hunting in someone else's house.
Right.
But it was something you always talked about.
Yeah, I lived in a haunted house too, and it was pretty crazy there. It wasn't anything evil, but it was just it's crazy. If a person hasn't lived under that kind of a roof, you're kind of missing out, I think.
Well, back in the 90s, I lived in this area called Sedansville in Cincinnati. Now, there's a directory there that's haunted. It's been on a couple different paranormal shows. But that area was a Native American camp. It was their area where they lived. And Colonel Sedan was a U.S. cavalry officer that came in and literally killed everybody. I mean, they wiped out everybody. So that whole little area of Sedansville has so much energy. I mean, it was not nothing for someone to say, I got up this morning, I walked in my closet and there's an Indian in a fetal position in my closet or in my basement or in my attic. Right. Even in the house I lived in, I heard Native American chanting, and then I start doing research and then I'm finding out, this whole town, this whole area was a reservation where it was massacred. And our community center, because I was a Boy Scout master at the time, and our community center, one of the employees there was saying that, she went into the restroom and then when she came out of the stall, she said there was an elderly woman wearing a long black dress that was up to the collar or up to her neck with like a white bonnet. And she says, you have to run and hide. The cavalry's coming. And then she said the woman disappeared. This is the kind of stuff that went on in this neighborhood.
Right.
Okay. Because the energy there of all these innocent men, women, and children, Native Americans that were massacred.
Right.
So everybody has had some type of, or some type of paranormal, experience going on, in that neighborhood. So I've always been around it, right. And I enjoy it. I love it to this day. UFOs, Bigfoot, monsters, the paranormal. I love it. I absolutely love it. Right. It's scary. That's the fun part.
Yeah. Have you ever been scared as far as paranormal stuff goes?
You know what? I did this paranormal investigation with this group that I knew up in Akron, Ohio. Okay, I spoke at a conference up there I spoke about Bigfoot, and they invited me up on one of their investigations for a weekend, and we did this brothel. Okay, it was a former brothel, but it was a bar downstairs, and the upstairs was, huh?
Yes, where at?
Oh,
Where
it
at?
was in Akron. It was somewhere in Akron. I can't remember the name of the area because, like I said, this was, oh my God, this was what 2006, 2007 maybe, and upstairs was an art area, but in the basement you go down this corridor and there was rooms that were there, but they're all bricked up now. So no one knows what's behind it. I mean, they could have been the girls from the brothel that were buried back there. But we were upstairs in one of the rooms, and I'm standing there, and there was two female researchers. They were sitting there doing their EVPs, and I started to smell perfume, and I had what it felt like a hand go across my face like that. Right at the time I was smelling the perfume, and it kind of freaked me out a little bit. So I told one of the female investigators there, and she said she did an EVP saying, is there a female in this room? And it came back yes, and they were asking, did you touch Joedy? And it came back as yes. So I was like, oh man, this is weird. I mean, but I wasn't really scared too much on that one. South Pittsburgh Hospital, I was terrified in their basement. Okay. That was the only time I was really terrified, because there was two individuals that were down in the basement further back, and it's a big hospital, so you're going through different corridors to get there, and I had to go get them, and I was so terrified coming down the steps, going into the basement in the dark with the light, trying to find them, because this is where the shadow figure that has been seen so many times at that hospital has been seen in that basement, and also has been seen up on the second floor. So
we talked earlier about the little girl. Do you want to tune in on that one? Because one of our watchers right now, Beth Allen, was real attached to that same thing.
Yeah, I was up in I think it was the second floor where the maternity area is, and there's a corridor there before you go in, and you have the doors, and you can go in. And I had my recorder going. I had it on, and I was walking down the hall. I wasn't saying anything or communicating. I just had it on. I wanted to see if I picked up anything. So when I got into the maternity or nursing area of the hospital, I played it back, and you heard a little girl kind of like singing a little bit, and you heard the tap dance on the floor. And I never heard any of this stuff, but I got it on recording, and I knew there was a little girl there because people talked about it. And then when I was in their maternity area, I was, going down off to my left, I passed the door that was open, and I saw a little girl. And I kind of went back, and she was gone. And that's where I saw this white mist move literally across the room, from the bed. And I was just snapping pictures. So I got 7 pictures of this white mist where you can see it move. And at one point, it kind of goes almost in form a little bit, but yeah, it was that scared the crap out of me. But the thing of it is, being a father at the time, I didn't think if it was a child, I don't think she was evil, and I didn't think she would do anything. I just think she was letting me know she was there, But yeah, the South Pittsburgh Hospital, I love that place.
And when were you there?
Oh, this was, oh my God. I'm trying to think. 2011, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, Beth was just asking questions.
About 2011, and then I was there a year later, 2 years later.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was there twice. Yeah, so it's kind of a neat place. They had a big get together there one time, and there was just a whole bunch of people there, and they brought in, everybody had food, and it was just a neat investigation. Ken Gerhardt was there.
Okay.
He was there. It was a little conference kind of thing we were having, where people were speaking, and I spoke there. Ken Gerhardt spoke there, and I got a really good picture of Ken Gerhardt sitting in the same room where I saw the little girl, and you see these orbs, and as I'm taking pictures of Ken, you can see the orbs were moving. They weren't staying in place, so it was kind of interesting.
So, do you have a bucket list, or whether it be Bigfoot, Dogman, paranormal, UFO? Do you have somewhere that you would like to go?
A bucket list. Oh. Looking for Bigfoot, I would have to say I would love to maybe go to the Himalayas, to look for the Yeti. I think that would mean I would love to go to Scotland for the Loch Ness Monster, and I would definitely love,
Been there. I got to go. I didn't see the Loch Ness Monster. I was up on Inverness, but I got to go down into the catacombs under the Royal Mile. That was cool. Yeah, I had some crazy. I had some ancestral stuff go down that night. So.
Oh my God, yeah. And I would love to go to Eastern Europe, like Hungary and Transylvania area.
Oh yeah.
I got connections. I got connections from Romania. My friends, they live in Scotland. Actually, did my tattoo right here in Scotland. They're from Romania, and him and his wife said they have a flat in the mountainside in Romania that if I come out there, I'm more than welcome to stay there. And they live in Scotland, so I'm like, that's on my list.
Yes, because they call it werewolf. They don't call them Dogman there. They call them werewolves, and there's a lot of legends of werewolves, and in there. And I want to go. And I saw this thing the other day where now you can go to Dracula's castle and stay there. They're turning it into like a resort to stay at. It's like, man, that would be so cool.
They probably after COVID need to find a way to keep it alive. A lot of locations around the world are having trouble. It shocked the world with finances and everything. So I'm glad they did. I'm sure they wasn't something they ever thought they would want to do, but I'm glad that they are, because I'm gonna make it there.
Yeah, all right. I oh my God, I would go in a heartbeat. I've been to Europe when I was in the Army, and it's neat. And like you say, Eastern Europe is a lot different, than Western Europe, and it's still all no, I can't use the word vintage, but it's all looks the spooky like the old movies,
Right.
It still looks that way, and it's just like, man, I would love to go. I would love to hear the werewolf legends. I would love to go out with these guys who are actually looking for the werewolves. I want to go to Dracula's castle. I want to go Loch Ness.
There's so many places. You speak of Loch Ness now. We're coming up at the end of our time, but you start talking about Loch Ness. But there's a lot of lake monsters. I don't think people realize how many sightings there are, and whether or not they're actually true or not. There's a lot of sightings of lake monsters in river.
There is, and they fall within the same parallel. Like if you grab a map or a globe, you can see where all the lake monsters fall within the same, I guess, latitude of each other.
Okay.
All around the world. And when I was in Kuwait, because I got deployed to Iraq, and we went to Kuwait, and Kuwait City, there's a lake monster, in Kuwait City there at the docks and stuff that they feed this thing, and it's looks like a plesiosaur. is the best way to describe it.
Right.
But, it's a legend that's always been there. It was there the day we were getting our equipment, so it's not uncommon. But what's so weird is that science will not even go there and look at this thing. And this thing is not shy. It comes out of the water and lets you see it because people are throwing food to it.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, what do you think about people who are still saying or claiming that they see dinosaurs? And I asked that. Let me take a friend of mine that I worked with in San Antonio. His family was from Brazil. He was born here, but he said his mom would tell him stories that when she was little, her mom would tell her, "Don't go down to the river by yourself because there's a dinosaur there that the whole village knew of."
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like Mokele-mbembe. That's it which is the dinosaur in the Congo. Mm-hmm. That's another place I would love to go look for Mokele-mbembe. And it's like a brontosaurus type creature.
Yeah.
There's a band. I can't say abandoned. It's just an old village in Cambodia that on one of the walls there's a carving of a stegosaurus in the wall. Okay, so how is it that these people knew what a stegosaurus looked like? Unless they actually saw one.
Right.
The Amazon is another one where they talk about dinosaurs in the Amazon, where people have seen them. And here's the thing: what makes it so interesting and what makes it so credible of that it's true. You take like the Congo and the Amazon; they have not changed in millions of years.
Right.
Okay, so especially like the Congo. The environment is so isolated that if there was any living dinosaurs, they would be protected. They would be able to, stay unhidden, okay, or stay hidden for long periods of time. But the problem with that is, and most biologists will probably tell you this, is that through evolution, what a dinosaur would have looked like 365 million years ago may not look what it would look like today.
Right. Beth,
okay.
Sorry, Beth.
Yeah. I mean, no, Beth is probably right. Texas has a really lot of stories about Tyrannosaurus Rex and velociraptors in Texas.
And Thunderbirds.
Yeah. But like I said, these things, through evolution would have changed, and they may be still similar to what they look like, but they would probably be a little bit different.
Right.
But if something like the Congo, they probably would never have changed. They probably stayed the same, So it's not unusual to be hearing stories of dinosaurs because when the meteor hit, I'm sure it did not wipe out everything.
Right.
So
I know enough to know I don't know a damn thing. It's like,
No,
that's the big wonder, though. We don't know, so it's pretty cool to just try to,
I saw this painting the other day that I believe it came out somewhere out of the Middle East, India area, Pakistan, where the painting was hundreds, maybe 1,000 years old. Okay, give or take. And people are riding on brontosauruses in the painting.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's odd. How would they know that? Why would you paint something that you never saw? Right. It's like some of these paintings that are coming out of Europe that has UFOs in them.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Why is the Vatican looking for, extraterrestrials? They have their own little, type NASA stuff going on where they have their own, telescopes and, things like that looking for extraterrestrial life.
Well, cool, man. Hey, Joedy, man, it's been a great pleasure talking to you, man. You got so much to say about everything, and that's that makes you a great guest, and that makes you a great person. Really, I really appreciate you coming on. But before you leave, we have to tell people, man, about any of these fields that they want to investigate, they want to learn more. What would you tell
them about investigating cryptids?
Yeah, cryptids, UFOs, paranormal.
Yeah, I mean, anything. I mean, I read up on the subject, redo your research. They can find a lot of good places to look. I mean, look at some of the most popular places like the Beast of Bray Road in Wisconsin, the Michigan Dogman, the Germantown Werewolf, Shenango Valley Werewolf. Ohio, you have the Grassman.
Right.
Definitely, look at the research. There's a lot of good conferences out there that you can go to and talk to people about their sightings and, different types of the cryptids out there. But yeah, definitely do your research on what you do. I would stick to one particular cryptid at a time. Because trust me, if you start doing them all, you're going to do them all. And you're just going to forget where you were, where you started. So just do one at a time and move on to the next.
You mentioned the Ohio Grassman, and I forgot to talk about your book, man. I'm sorry, but tell people where they can find your books if they're looking for them.
You can find, most of them are still available. Some are no longer available. You can go on Amazon and just type my name in, Joedy Cook Books and stuff. I ended up suing a guy because he took one of my books. Actually took two of my books and rewrote them. And and rewrote them and claimed that I took the information from him, but my books were already printed and published 2 years before his was. So, and I already had the Library of Congress, number to back it up. Okay. And so he kind of got angry. So he him and his friends went and gave really trashy comments on all of my books, and I contact Amazon, and Amazon, no, we're not gonna do anything. Everybody has a right to, do it. But, and it was sad. So I ended up suing the guy, over it. And, and it left bad blood on his half. And like I said, him and his friends trashed every one of my books. So, it was just because he was mad. He lost the lawsuit. So,
well, sorry about that, man. But guys, you guys are listening. Go out, look up Joedy Cook on Amazon, man. Get his books. I'm sure he'll appreciate it. I'm sure it's all good information. The guy's very knowledgeable, so I definitely would recommend him. All right, guys, that'll be it for tonight. Shannon, you want to say good night to everybody?
Good night, everybody. I've been muting because my son is even like, I'm like.
And thanks everybody in the chat room. You guys had a lot of great comments as always, and we appreciate that very much. And thanks for tuning in. And we will see you Sunday. I got a show Sunday, so we'll see you Sunday, guys.
Yeah.
All right, you two guys.
All right, you guys have a good one. Nice meeting you, Sharon.
Hey, that's not. Thanks, Joey. Appreciate it.
You too.